50 things that bring back the best 1970s memories. Can you smell the hot polyester or feel your feet sinking deep into the shag carpet? The 70s were the era of feathered hair, hot pants, and banana seat bicycles. This was when a $275 Pulsar watch was the ultimate symbol, and the Atari game console was new. Let's unlock the bold and unique memories that shaped an American generation. Let's start now. Short shorts and tube socks. When thinking about 1970s fashion, few probably want to mention the trend of short shorts for men. These extremely short, tight shorts were primarily seen in athletic shorts, often appearing on the basketball court or on roller skaters cruising in the park. The distinctive feature was that these shorts were often paired with tube socks. These socks covered the lower half of the leg, usually featured stripes around the top, and created a casual, sporty look. Famous athletes like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bjorn Borg helped popularize the short shorts and tube socks trend nationwide. It was a very distinct style compared to modern men's fashion, showing off hairy legs, and thankfully this trend has gradually faded over time. Super 8 cameras. Before convenient digital cameras or smartphones, families in the 1970s often recorded important life events using the Super 8 camera. This camera was a brilliant invention by Kodak, utilizing a cinematic film format, but designed to make home movie recording easier and more affordable than ever. It allowed any family to become amateur filmmakers, recording birthday parties, summer vacations, or warm Christmas events. Reviewing those old Super 8 films with faded colors and characteristic film grain truly brings a deep sense of nostalgia for a simpler era. Answering machines. At this time, home communication took a big leap, bringing a new sense of control thanks to the introduction of the answering machine. Previously, if you didn't pick up the phone in time, you missed the call. But now, the caller could leave a message, allowing us to listen back when we were free. Owning an answering machine gave people more control over their lives. It added a touch of new technology to every home, making the house more modern and convenient. Mothers no longer had to stay by the phone, and teenagers could leave messages for friends without bothering their parents. Wacky Packs. Wacky Packs was the only place where kids could openly ridicule major brands without getting into trouble. These card sets humorously and sometimes crudely parodied popular consumer products of the time. The artwork on the cards was drawn by some of the decade's most famous artists, bringing a unique sophistication to the silly humor. The card packs were a fun collectible item. Inside each pack was a stick of hard gum with a checklist and 2 wacky stickers. They were very popular for sticking on school notebooks due to their eye-catching images and humor. Large belt buckles. The popularity of belt buckles increased sharply in the 70s, and manufacturers quickly seized the trend, creating new designs and art on these oversized metal pieces. They were widely sold through mail-order magazine advertisements at concerts and festivals, and by small street vendors. Your belt buckle said a lot about you, from your favorite band and the car you drove, to the personal style you wanted to express. They were often made of brass or other heavy metals. Having a collection of large belt buckles demonstrated individuality and was an essential part of the high-waisted Levi's jeans or bell-bottoms outfit of the time. Rattan wicker furniture. Rattan and wicker furniture, previously reserved only for patios and porches, made a huge shift and became a hot addition to internal living spaces and kitchens. Dining chairs and breakfast bar stools began to be replaced by more natural and casual rattan or wicker options. This natural furniture, or even decorative baskets, added a layer of warm, rustic texture to 1970s kitchens. It combined perfectly with macrame owl wall decorations and the popular earth tones like avocado green and harvest gold. Rattan furniture brought a comfortable, close-to-nature feeling, softening the prominence of bold wallpaper patterns. Mushroom decor. In the 1970s, interior design and kitchenware, illustrated designs, especially fruits and vegetables, were popular, but none were as popular as mushrooms. Mushrooms were one of the most common types, appearing on everything until the end of the decade. Mushroom designs, often drawn or sometimes embossed, could be found on cookware, canister sets, kitchen towels, trivets, and even wall clocks. For some people, the mushroom trend was such a craze that entire kitchens were decorated with mushrooms during this decade. Natural elements were brought into home decor, aligning with the natural theme and earth tones that conveyed the era's rustic simplicity. Indoor live plants. The first Earth Day event held in 1970 strongly inspired people to bring nature indoors. Plants like paus, common houseplants, spider plants, and ferns would hang down from stands, complementing the natural wood finishes of the kitchen. They were often placed on specially designed plant stands that could hold multiple plants and sometimes reach the ceiling. These easy-to-care-for species not only added a patch of green to the earth-toned rooms, but also brought a fresh, lively feeling, creating a cozy and environmentally conscious space. You could apply this simple and effective way to make your house fashionable and nature-friendly. Elaborate standing ashtrays. Elaborate standing ashtrays were a common fixture in many homes, especially the living room. The importance of having a convenient and beautiful place to put out cigarette butts was not overlooked, as smoking was a much more common habit than it is today. These ashtrays were often made of decorative glass and accented with brass, creating an attractive focal point. They were usually very large, so you didn't have to empty them often, which added convenience. Moreover, they often had handles allowing you to lift and move them around the room easily. Granny Square crocheted blankets. Besides keeping warm, these blankets were symbols of home craftsmanship, a crucial life skill passed down from mothers and reinforced in high school home economics classes. If you grew up in the 1970s, you definitely saw or owned these crocheted blankets. For many families, these rough blankets were not just used to decorate the back of the sofa, but were also the result of a popular hobby at the time, crocheting. Consequently, many families had many of these blankets in every room. They were often made of rough yarn and used bright, contrasting colors, adding a splash of vibrancy to the earth-toned living room. Do you still keep any unique collectibles from your childhood? Which memorabilia holds the greatest sentimental value for you? Color TV in the bedroom. Owning a color TV in the bedroom was a clear sign of status. Black and white TVs were still very common, and color TVs were only gradually making their way into family living rooms across the country. But having a color TV in a personal bedroom was a major status symbol. You could watch your favorite shows in full color from the comfort of your bed, which was incredible at the time. These TVs were often very large and encased in wood, placed on the floor and could double as a table. Some wealthy families even had TVs that came with the so-called Zenith Space Command wireless remote control, allowing them to change channels without having to get up. In-ground swimming pool. An in-ground swimming pool was a sign of success, indicating that your family had enough space and finances to maintain such a luxury amenity. Wealthy families with two-story houses and spacious backyards often had these pools, turning their home into a private oasis for summer fun. Owning an in-ground pool meant you always had a radiant tan and could host the most exclusive pool parties for all your friends. The sound of splashing water and music playing from a portable radio were integral parts of the luxurious life. Schoolhouse Rock shorts. Saturday was sacred for cartoons, but the Schoolhouse Rock shorts cleverly integrated education into entertainment without us even realizing it. These segments taught us about multiplication, like 3 is a magic number, history, like how a bill becomes a law, and the difference between conjunctions and interjections. Thanks to the catchy and memorable songs, children knew all about complex concepts without having to open a book. Schoolhouse Rock turned Saturday mornings into a secret study session where we giggled and sang along. Even now, many of us still remember the lyrics to Conjunction Junction or I'm Just a Bill. Pulsar watch? Pulsar became the first watch inspired by and displaying time in a digital format using LEDs. Owning a Pulsar demonstrated that you were tech-savvy and had a modern aesthetic. It debuted on The Tonight Show in 1970. This high-end watch cost $275, equivalent to over $1,800 today, adjusted for inflation, making it a clear status symbol. Pulsar's sleek, futuristic design and advanced technology turned it into the first fully electronic watch with no moving parts. Pulsar's popularity led Texas Instruments to produce their own digital watch in 1975, but at a much more affordable price, bringing the product to the masses. Magnavox Odyssey. If you are a video game fan, the Magnavox Odyssey is where it all began. Launched in 1972 after 5 years of development, it was the first commercial home video game console. This groundbreaking system was extremely rudimentary, capable of displaying a maximum of 3 dots and 1 vertical line, but it allowed for playing over 20 unique games. The Odyssey included many unusual accessories such as rectangular controllers, plastic overlays for the TV screen to simulate different settings, and cards for various game scenarios. Although quite primitive by modern standards, the Odyssey's innovation was a critical milestone in the development of video games, directly influencing future consoles, especially Atari, which launched a version inspired by Odyssey's tennis game. Pong. Pong's simplicity worked wonders. Featuring 2 paddles hitting a small square back and forth, Pong was cutting-edge technology in the mid-70s. It marked the dawn of home video gaming. Introduced by Atari in the Christmas season of 1975 and sold through the Sears catalog, the Pong console quickly became a craze. Although it only played a single table tennis simulation, its simplicity and competitive gameplay captivated audiences. Hours of entertainment were spent trying to defeat opponents, often siblings or neighbors. Pong's success led to knockoffs and laid the foundation for future innovations in gaming. If you didn't own one, you definitely knew someone who did, and found every way to befriend them to play. Atari 2600. The Atari 2600 launched in 1977, marking the beginning of the joystick era. It was the first game console of its kind to offer interchangeable game cartridges, allowing users to play many different games, a huge step up from Pong. The success of the Atari 2600 was cemented by its launch with 9 games including Air-Sea Battle, Basic Math, Blackjack, Combat, Indy 500, Starship, Street Racer, Surround, and Video Olympics. The success of the Atari 2600 was driven by its game library and its simple yet revolutionary joystick controller. HP 65 Programmable Calculator. The Hewlett-Packard 65, HP 65, is an example of advanced technology far ahead of its time in the 70s. It was the first magnetic card-programmable handheld calculator, introduced in 1974 and costing nearly $800. This scientific calculator made solving complex math problems easy and fast. The HP 65 featured a magnetic card reader for storing programs, allowing users to write their own calculations or use pre-programmed cards, offering precision and convenience. Even more incredibly, this handheld device was even used by NASA astronauts in space to adjust their spacecraft's position, solidifying its status as a technological legend. Mattel Electronic Football. This device used a series of lights on a small screen to simulate the game. Players controlled a blinking light representing a football player, navigating past opponent lights to score touchdowns. Despite limited gameplay options, Mattel Electronic Football was a huge success, as it was one of the first popular handheld electronic games. It paved the way for the future of mobile electronic games and tablets we see today. The electronic beeps and the blinking red lights on the black screen became the characteristic sounds and visuals of mobile entertainment. Speak and Spell. Speak and Spell was another iconic gadget from the late 1970s. Introduced by Texas Instruments in 1978, this educational toy pioneered the use of a speech synthesizer to help children learn spelling and word pronunciation. The machine became extremely popular, especially after being used by the alien E.T. to phone home in the 1982 movie. Its innovative design and engaging gameplay made learning fun, making it popular in both classrooms and at home. Around the same time, Reese's Pieces candy was also introduced, becoming E.T.'s favorite snack and further cementing Speak and Spell's place in pop culture. Kodak Pocket Instamatic 20. Launched in 1972, this was the most affordable camera model in Kodak's Instamatic line. It allowed everyone to take quick photos with an easy-to-load film cartridge, eliminating the complexity of rolling film. The Pocket Instamatic 20's compact size and user-friendly design made photography much more accessible. Although you still had to wait for the film to be developed, this camera revolutionized snapshot photography by simplifying the process, leading to millions of cherished family photos that we are digitizing today. Do you remember the first time you saw a home video game console? Share your feelings about the dawn of the home gaming era. Original Star Wars figures. The shortest gateway to imagination and the world of the distant galaxy was Kenner's Star Wars toys. When the blockbuster movie Star Wars debuted in 1977, the demand for toys was so high that Kenner couldn't keep up with production. Nearly a year later, the first 4 toys shipped directly to lucky early order customers were Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Chewbacca, and R2-D2. If you still keep an original Darth Vader or Obi-Wan Kenobi figure with the double telescoping lightsaber, you are sitting on a treasure. Feathered hair. The feathered hairstyle was a cultural phenomenon created by Farrah Fawcett. Without it, the 1970s might have just been a blurred patch of disco and bell-bottoms. This hairstyle was distinct from previous styles due to its natural volume, swept back and away from the face, giving a freer and more relaxed feeling. Teenagers paid special attention to it, especially when Charlie's Angels episodes aired weekly, making Farrah an even bigger star. The feathered style was popular among both men and women in the 1970s, and its influence can still be seen in modern hairstyles. Women in the 1970s obsessed over this hair and tried to mimic it with blow dryers and hairspray, spending hours in front of the mirror styling the volume. It was a style iconic of the decade's freedom and charm. Lady Chic Speed Styler. If you were one of the girls who admired Farrah Fawcett and her classic feathered haircut, you might have owned the Lady Chic Speed Styler. This device was endorsed by the superstar Farrah Fawcett herself and made achieving her classic style easier. The Lady Chic Speed Styler was a combination of a hairdryer and a styling tool. Girls across the country bought this device, turning the feathered hairstyle creation into a simpler procedure. This helped everyone, especially teenage girls, easily achieve the glamorous, voluminous look characteristic of their idol. It was one of the essential beauty tools, alongside scented shampoos like Prel or Herbal Essence, that shaped personal care routines throughout the decade. Extremely wide collar shirts. Fashion in the 1970s was about making a statement and standing out, especially on the disco floor. Shirts with extremely wide collars became a staple for both men and women. This floppy collar created a characteristic look synonymous with the disco era. Wide collars combined with bell-bottom pants that flared out from the knee down were essential elements for creating the 70s style. Shirts were often made of polyester, a synthetic, slippery, and shiny material. For men, this shirt was often unbuttoned down to the navel, showing off chest hair, a casual but bold style. This was one of the decade's most distinctive looks, making us look back and smile at the boldness of our clothing choices. Polyester. Although there were many different clothing options in the 1970s, many of us still chose polyester. This synthetic material made owning a leisure suit or a safari jacket easy and affordable for many disco fans. We owned them in every color and pattern. The casual polyester leisure suit style became even more popular after John Travolta wore them on the big screen in Saturday Night Fever. Polyester was known for being heavy, hot, slippery, and shiny. Although this material could be uncomfortable and caused heavy sweating, it was still the top choice for anyone wanting to look cool because it offered glossiness and fit the disco style. Hot pants. The peak of bold and rebellious fashion in the 1970s must be hot pants. These were short, tight shorts that only covered the most necessary parts, showing off long legs, making a strong statement wherever they were worn. This fashion trend was a way for women to liberate their bodies and express freedom, showing skin. They were controversial and attracted so much attention that they earned the name hot pants. Despite social scrutiny, hot pants were widely accepted and became a symbol of confidence and disco style, suitable for brightly lit dance floors. Halter tops and hip huggers. Halter tops and hip huggers also took center stage in women's fashion, embodying the freedom and rebellion of the youth. These outfits exposed the midriff and highlighted curvy hips, perfect for the dance floor, especially when they danced the newly popular moves like the bump, the hustle, and YMCA. Hip huggers, often paired with large belts, along with shoulder-bearing halter tops, were the perfect outfit for showing off sweaty dance moves. The decade's culture made dancing essential, and many girls practiced their steps as if they were about to become the next solid gold dancer. Goody's Super Comb. While everyone tried to style Farrah Fawcett's famous feathered hair, they needed a reliable tool. The original Goody's Super Comb was so large and bulky that it looked almost like a weapon. But this reliable hair accessory, which could comb through anything, became the ultimate fashion accessory in the 1970s. By tucking a super comb into your back pocket, all your friends knew you were serious about keeping your hair beautiful and in place. Mood rings. These rings were believed to contain thermotropic liquid crystals, and their molecular structure would change based on the wearer's temperature. It was believed that the rings could indicate when someone was feeling anxious, excited, or even romantic. This caused all teenagers, especially girls, to rush to buy them. Most of the time they were a neutral green, but when the temperature changed, they could shift to other colors like purple, blue, yellow, or brown. Even if these rings didn't reflect your actual mood, they were still fun accessories to wear as a playful way to discuss feelings. If you could choose, which fashion trend from that era would you wear again? Share your coolest style from the 70s. Pet rocks. Pet rocks are a classic story of American spontaneity and fleeting success. Gary Dahl, an advertising executive, came up with the idea in 1975 while drinking with friends. The idea was simple: a rock, a cardboard box designed to look like a pet carrier, and a humorous instruction manual on how to care for your pet. Pet rocks appealed to people with a sense of humor, looking for lighthearted entertainment. The phenomenon became a craze, selling up to 100,000 units per day. Although it only lasted about 6 months, Gary Dahl sold over 1 million rocks for $4 each, making himself a millionaire. S&H green stamps. Collecting S&H green stamps was a popular grocery store loyalty program, part of the weekly shopping routine in the 70s. Customers would collect stamps upon checkout and paste them into special notebooks. The task of sticking stamps into the book was often assigned to children, and the process required meticulousness, making many recall licking and pasting stamps in the kitchen. After collecting enough stamps, they could be redeemed for household products from the catalog, such as Pyrex cookware or decorative items. Although S&H green stamps were the most popular, some stores might have used blue chip or gold bond stamps instead. It was a way to encourage customer loyalty and turn everyday shopping into a reward accumulation game. Sid and Marty Krofft shows. Fantasy programming on television was a staple of the 1970s, and no one did it more bizarrely than the Sid and Marty Krofft brothers. Their children's shows, such as H.R. Pufnstuf, Land of the Lost, and Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, featured big-headed puppets, vivid colors, and low-budget special effects. Although some suggested these shows were the product of heavy drug use due to their strange nature, the creators maintained that the fantastical and sometimes creepy puppets were just part of their imagination. Tiger Beat magazine. Tiger Beat magazine was the bedside book catering to the hearts of teenage girls across the country. This teen idol magazine featured dreamy stars, from pop stars to actors and athletes, on glossy pages. Many girls covered their bedroom walls with posters of their favorite stars, turning the bedroom into a personal shrine. This magazine became the leading source for celebrity gossip and content about crushes. Teen idols like Shawn Cassidy, David Cassidy, Leif Garrett, and Scott Baio were often found plastered all over girls' bedroom walls. Treasures of King Tut exhibition. In the late 1970s, an unexpected superstar began touring the country with sold-out exhibitions, the Treasures of King Tut. This young Egyptian king, whose lavish tomb was discovered in 1922, began his tour in the U.S. in 1976. The exhibition was so successful it lasted into the 1980s. The exhibition created a huge buzz, and King Tut and Egyptian culture appeared on TV, in movies, and in music. Who could forget Steve Martin's hilarious King Tut performance on SNL in 1978? Not to mention, many of us were guilty of owning at least one King Tut t-shirt, bringing ancient Egyptian culture into everyday fashion trends. hamburger helper. When it came to meals and specifically dinner, the 70s introduced a game-changer for busy households, hamburger helper. This culinary invention revolutionized how families prepared ground beef. With more women entering the workforce, the need for a quick, easy, and affordable meal became urgent. With just a pound of ground beef and a box of hamburger helper, anyone could make a quick dish that pleased the whole family. The white glove mascot helped hamburger helper become a beloved household name. Crock-Pot. The crock-pot was another major kitchen gadget that gained popularity in the 1970s. As women entered the workforce in large numbers, the crock-pot was marketed directly to them and their families. The popularity of this convenient slow cooker soared, with sales reaching $93 million by 1975. The crock-pot made making dinner the easiest it had ever been. By preparing ingredients in the morning, dinner would be ready and hot right when you got home from work. Fondue Pot. A family gathering or a party with friends in the 1970s wouldn't be complete without a pot of hot cheese for dipping. Fondue. Having a fondue set with small forks made eating more interactive and fun. It wasn't just food, it was a social experience. Fondue made a big mark on the 1970s kitchens. Whether you spent the whole meal dipping bread and vegetables into melted cheese, or just used it as a sweet chocolate dessert appetizer, fondue was a symbol of the era's sophistication and casual entertainment style. Tab soda. Tab soda was a major bestseller in the 1970s, a diet soft drink produced by Coca-Cola. The main sweetener in Tab was saccharin, which caused problems when researchers suggested it caused cancer. Despite a warning label about side effects, Tab remained popular and maintained its popularity throughout the decade. However, the end for Tab was the introduction of Diet Coke in 1982. Although Tab is still produced, the drink has significantly reduced production, but it still maintains a small, loyal fan base. Do you remember the smell of food cooked in a crock pot? Or the flavor of Tab soda? Tell me about your favorite childhood meal. Charms Blow Pops. The memory of biting through hard candy to get the gum inside is an unforgettable sweet experience of childhood. Everyone loved a lollipop, and Charms Blow Pops were the favorite lollipops of the 1970s. They launched in candy stores in 1973. Charms Blow Pops offered an attractive 2-in-1 deal. Once a child had licked and chewed through the hard candy shell, they still had the soft gum layer in the middle to chew. This was a perfect combination, providing both the sweetness of candy and the long-lasting joy of chewing gum. These colorful lollipops in various flavors delighted the taste buds of an entire generation. Chopper bicycles with banana seats. 1970s bicycles were a style statement, inspired by motorcycles thanks to the popularity of Evel Knievel and the movie Easy Rider. Bicycles not only had raised chopper handlebars but also long seats called banana seats. This style was introduced by Schwinn in 1963, and kids everywhere went crazy for it. By the 1970s, if you didn't have a bike with raised handlebars and a banana seat, you were considered outdated. These bikes had extended frames and low seats, serving as the ultimate symbol of 1970s cool and the envy of the neighborhood. Pontiac Trans Am. Teenagers in the 1970s yearned to own one car more than any other, the Pontiac Trans Am. It became one of the decade's most popular muscle cars. The movie Smokey and the Bandit, 1977, helped push its popularity even higher, turning it into a symbol of speed and freedom. For kids and teens in the 1970s, the Trans Am embodied everything they could want in a car. The large Firebird decal on the hood, the shaker scoop, and the comfortable bucket seats created one of the most iconic cars. Station wagon. Family road trips in the 1970s were often filled with adventure and togetherness, especially when traveling in the classic station wagon. These spacious cars allowed families to stretch out comfortably as they embarked on long road trips, picnics, or even a trip to the grocery store. Kids always wanted to sit in the very back row, where they could wave and make faces at passing cars, or even lie down and read the latest issue of Tiger Beat as you traveled from place to place. Hitchhiking. In the 1970s, hitchhiking was a common and accepted mode of travel for adventurers seeking new experiences. With a simple thumb out by the side of the road, one could find a ride to somewhere new and share stories with fellow travelers. Although it sounds risky by today's standards, hitchhiking was a reliable and affordable way for some people to travel during this time. It represented the spirit of freedom, adventure, and mutual trust among people. Waterbed. The waterbed was the height of 1970s bedroom luxury. These rippling beds offered a unique sleeping experience and were advertised as relaxing. Waterbeds were expensive. Therefore, rich kids having one in their room was a big deal, as they were usually only seen in parents' bedrooms. The waterbed wasn't just a piece of furniture, it was a status symbol, adding a touch of extravagance and distinction to any bedroom, making it a major envy among the youth of that era. 100 things. From the 1960s, America that are forgotten today. Behind the booming music, classic cars, and black and white TVs, the 60s held hundreds of everyday details that few people remember. Some make us smile with nostalgia, while others are hard to believe they ever existed. From quirky habits, short-lived inventions, to scenes of life that have now vanished, all create a unique picture of an America that no longer is. Today, let's journey back in time to look at the forgotten things from the 1960s that many will miss. Average salary and family life. Back then, the average annual salary in the US was around $7,000. Hard to believe compared to today, but that amount was enough for a family to live comfortably on just one income. The father would go to work, bringing home enough to support the whole family, fill up the car's gas tank, and even save for a summer vacation. Life wasn't luxurious, but at least people didn't feel like they were falling behind. White picket fences and familiar neighbors. The dream of a house with a white picket fence, a spacious, inviting porch, and a working doorbell. This wasn't just a picture of a house, but a symbol of a close-knit community. There, everyone knew each other's names, exchanged daily stories, and shared everyday moments. Life revolved around close neighborly relationships, where you could ask for favors, share, and feel safe within the embrace of the neighborhood. Glass milk bottles at the door. Every early morning before breakfast was even on the table, you'd hear the familiar clinking of fresh glass milk bottles delivered right to your door. Sometimes, if you were lucky, the milkman would even leave a small chocolate milk bottle. A sweet surprise that turned an ordinary morning into a little Christmas for the kids. That sound became a part of life's rhythm, bringing simple joy and starting a new day full of energy. Drying clothes outdoors. Clotheslines stretched across the backyard, full of clothespins. While bath towels might dry stiff under the sun and wind, they carried a distinctive scent of freshness and warmth. You didn't need a dryer to feel your clothes were clean, because the natural scent of the sun did it all. In those days, life seemed more open and connected to nature, enjoying the simple things life offered. Gas station. Attendant. When you drove into a gas station back then, an attendant in a cap would quickly appear. He wouldn't just fill up your tank. He'd also check the oil, clean the windshield, and might even friendly offer you a free map. There were no credit cards or touchscreens, just coins, a nod, and a friendly smile. It was full, personalized service, where you felt the care and human connection, unlike today's automation. Green stamps. Green stamps were everywhere, becoming an indispensable part of daily life. You'd peel them off grocery store receipts, carefully stick them into small booklets, and patiently accumulate them. The goal? To exchange them for desired household items like a blender, an electric fan, or a brand new toaster. The redemption catalog was a world of dreams, and the feeling when you finally had enough booklets to get what you wanted was pure joy, like winning the lottery. Cuban Missile Crisis. Although the peak of the Cuban Missile Crisis occurred in 1962, the fear and anxiety of nuclear war haunted Americans throughout the 1950s and early 1960s. People always kept their radios close, carefully listening to every news bulletin and looking up at the sky a little longer, wondering what would happen. Schools frequently practiced duck and cover, a simple but haunting exercise where students crawled under their desks, covered their necks, and pretended to be safe from nuclear fire. In those days, the whole world seemed to hold its breath, and that fear was deeply imprinted in the minds of a generation. Saddle shoes. Saddle shoes were an indispensable fashion icon of the 50s, to the point where you wore them until they almost talked back to you. They were synonymous with school days, where you often got them dirty before class and spent recess meticulously polishing them white again. Somehow, these shoes were always annoying enough for you to notice their existence, but never so bad that you wanted to leave them at home. Almost every child had a pair, whether they liked them or not, because they were part of the uniform, part of the culture. They were relics of an innocent time, full of mischievous antics. Car back seat as a mobile playground. Before seatbelts became standard, the back seat of a station wagon was a true mobile playground for kids. It was a free space with blankets, toys, and sometimes even a dog running around unrestrained. Nobody wore seatbelts, but somehow kids survived every trip. They bounced with every bump in the road, happily snacked, and fought over who got to sit by the window. Those were unlimited adventures where imagination soared and memories of freedom and carefree days were etched deep. Elevator operators. Elevators in the 50s weren't automatic. They always had a professional operator inside. They wore neat uniforms, some even white gloves, exuding politeness and reliability. The operator would open the gate, turn a small crank to control the elevator, and clearly, crisply call out the floors, as if conducting an orchestra. 4th floor, housewares, linens, toys. The elevator experience back then was elegant and made you feel like you were going somewhere very important. Polaroid cameras. Polaroid cameras appeared like a technological miracle of the era. You just pressed the button, heard the familiar hum, then patiently waited and waited. Someone would always exclaim, "Shake it," as if it actually helped, though in reality it did nothing. And then, when the photo finally slowly appeared, gradually sharpening on the paper, it brought a magical feeling, like visual proof of your existence in that moment. These photos were often stuck on the refrigerator or sometimes lost forever in an old drawer. Vending machines. So different. You just dropped a few coins in and you could actually get something worthwhile to eat. It could be a cold soda, a pack of gum, or even a sandwich if you were brave enough to try. No complicated touchscreens or credit card readers, just old, almost non-working buttons, and snacks that always seemed to get stuck on the top row, forcing you to find a way to retrieve them. Ice cream trucks with characteristic music. The melody from the ice cream truck was the signal for summer start. You could hear that little tune 5 blocks away, and immediately you'd scream for spare change from your parents. Then you'd run barefoot on the hot sidewalk, despite the scorching sun, to catch up with the ice cream truck. The ice cream truck's menu never changed, but the joy it brought never faded. Whether it was a bomb pop or anything else, they tasted better when you had to race to get them. Camera flash bulbs. To take a photo in low light, you needed flash bulbs, which had to be replaced after each shot. They would pop, fizz, and quickly get hot. You always carried a spare pack of these small bulbs, as if they were ammunition. At family gatherings, people were often blinded 5 times in a row just to ensure a good shot. Viewmaster. Every child in the 50s had at least one Viewmaster reel, a magical device that transported you to other worlds. You'd excitedly click through vivid 3D images of majestic national parks, familiar cartoon characters, or colorful Disney scenes. That small red viewer had the ability to take you, click by click, to places you had only heard about in books. Sometimes you'd even flip the reel back and forth twice just to satisfy the joy of discovery. Barbershop with red and white spinning pole. In every neighborhood, you could easily spot a small barbershop with a spinning red and white striped pole outside, an unmistakable symbol. Inside, you'd find the familiar checkered tile floor, comfortable classic leather chairs, and a radio always playing the same channel with unchanging music or news. This was where men gathered to discuss politics, baseball, and local gossip. No appointments needed. You just waited your turn and caught up on town affairs. Home 8mm projectors. 8mm film projectors were a great way to preserve memorable family moments, from happy birthdays to unforgettable summer vacations and backyard antics. To watch them, you'd pull out the screen, meticulously thread the film into place, and turn off the lights. The film would start flickering, then suddenly everyone would burst into laughter, seeing themselves in old, grainy, shaky, slow-motion footage. Despite imperfect quality, those films held priceless emotional value, connecting to sweet memories, endless laughter, and family warmth. Do you still have any items from the 50s? Share your memories in the comments. Iconic cars. The 50s were the golden age of American cars with distinctive designs and characteristic lines. Models like the Chevrolet Bel Air, Ford Thunderbird, or Cadillac Eldorado were not just means of transport but also symbols of luxury and freedom. Notably, these cars often featured tail fins, creating a unique and recognizable style. They were the dream of many, appearing everywhere, from bustling city streets to peaceful suburban roads. Aluminum ice trays. To get ice, you had to use both hands to lift the cold metal lever, secretly praying the cubes wouldn't fly all over the kitchen. And when they finally popped out, the sound was loud enough to startle a sleeping dog. Yet, strangely, ice from these aluminum trays somehow felt colder and fresher than any ice from a modern refrigerator. Penny candy. The 50s was a time when you could actually buy candy for just a few pennies. You'd walk into the corner store, a handful of coins in hand, and leave with a small brown paper bag full of sweet treats. It could be wax bottles full of fruit juice, tiny button candies, or sometimes a huge jawbreaker that could last 3 recesses. Sugar was a symbol of freedom, and no one asked about ingredients. Encyclopedias by mail. Before Google existed, you couldn't instantly look up information. Instead, you had to wait 6 to 8 weeks to receive Volume G of the encyclopedia set you ordered by mail. Encyclopedia salespeople would knock on your door with promises of smarter children and shiny, gold-plated, carefully bound book sets. When they finally arrived, they would be prominently placed on the living room bookshelf, as if they were intellectual royalty. Though you might only open Volume T to look up dinosaurs, their presence brought a sense of pride and a thirst for knowledge to the whole family. Glass bottle sodas and wall-mounted bottle openers. Soda back then didn't fizz like today unless it was in a glass bottle, which offered a different taste and feel. And to open those bottles, you needed a special bottle opener, often permanently mounted on your garage wall. After opening, you'd line up a row of bottle caps on your workbench like trophies. No twist caps. You really had to work to enjoy those good things. Banks bribing customers with appliances. Back then, banks didn't just want your money, they also bribed you with attractive gifts of kitchen appliances. You just had to open a savings account, and you could leave with a new toaster, a set of glass cups, or even a blender. It sounds strange and wonderful because honestly, toasters back then were better than the interest rates you got. Laughter in the living room. Watching sitcoms. The whole family would stop all activities when classic TV shows like Bonanza, Gunsmoke, or Andy Griffith were on. Westerns were popular everywhere, and with them came canned laughter from the studio. Families watched together, not in silence, but with continuous little comments. "He's about to get hit. That guy's no good. Turn it up." Scent of mimeograph paper. The smell of freshly printed mimeograph paper hit like a wave, carrying a distinctive aroma. It was warm, smelled strongly of ink, and often had purple lettering, creating a strange appeal. Teachers would hand out these papers, and almost half the class would lift them to their noses, sniffing as if holding something magical. Honestly, no one knew why they smelled so good, but it became a part of the school experience, an unforgettable mark of those school years. Are you still with us on this nostalgic journey? Leave a yes in the comments to let us know you're enjoying it. Homemade lunches. Homemade lunches were often simple paper bags, inside which was a sandwich slightly flattened by heavy books. The filling was usually bologna and mustard, accompanied by a packet of crispy potato chips in wax paper, a fresh apple, and sometimes, if you were lucky, a cookie. Lunchtime at school was when you made deals under the table, trading snacks as if on a miniature stock exchange. Home slide projectors. You knew a family slideshow was about to happen when the lights in the room dimmed and the projector started clicking. The first thunk of the round slide tray was unmistakable. Fuzzy vacation photos, blurry birthday parties, or pictures of relatives, all projected onto the screen. Someone always narrated too loudly, and no one could sit through the whole show without someone falling asleep. Metal lunchboxes. Metal lunchboxes of the 50s were built like tanks. The lid often featured images of your favorite shows or comics, showing off your personality. Inside, there was a small thermos that always faintly smelled of milk, no matter what you put in it. Although the latches always broke and the handles often cracked, you still carried that box every day as if it were a protective suit of armor. Cartoons. We had classics like Howdy Doody, Captain Kangaroo, and Hopalong Cassidy. The puppets in these shows looked strange. The settings were simple, and the jokes were so old they were older than the earth. But us kids didn't care. It felt like those characters were talking directly to you, and that made all the difference. Unsupervised walks to school. Back then, walking to school was a free adventure. No navigation apps, maps, or adult supervision needed. You just needed a backpack, a coat, and a directive to go straight home. However, most of us didn't. We'd often take detours, stop at the corner store for candy, or explore other interesting things, and then return home just in time for dinner, as if nothing had happened. What memory from those days do you remember most? Tell me your favorite childhood food. Record players. A soft click, a familiar little hiss, then suddenly music filled the space. Every party, every Saturday, every first heartbreak, the soundtrack came from shiny black vinyl records. You learned to recognize which 45s often slipped, and the trick to fix them with a coin placed gently on the needle. Back then, no one played music just as background. People truly listened, enjoying every note, every lyric. Foldable plastic rain bonnets in mom's purse. Plastic rain bonnets were an essential item in every 50s mom's purse. They were neatly folded into small squares, ready for any situation. Just as soon as the sky turned dark, boom, the bonnet would appear like a superhero cape, protecting perfectly styled hair. Though not very fashionable, they were incredibly effective. And somehow, you never wondered why every woman had one. It was simply a part of life, a thoughtful preparation moms always had. Fighting the TV for reception, watching TV back then was challenging, but also full of memories, where the whole family teamed up to enjoy their favorite shows. One person would have to hold the rabbit ears antenna tight, while the other continuously yelled, "That's it, stop." "No, back a little, let go." You'd have to stuff aluminum foil on top of the antenna and pray for the picture to stay still. When it finally worked, you felt like you'd won a small battle. Streetlights as home curfews. For kids in the 50s, streetlights weren't just lights. They were the clock signaling time to go home. When those streetlights came on, you knew it was time to head back, no matter how good the game was or how exciting the play. Bicycle brakes squealed, kids quickly vanished like ghosts, and mothers poked their heads out the door with a single firm word: home. We didn't argue, we simply knew. Classic radio buttons. Classic radio buttons clicked like small safes, each press bringing a distinct and satisfying sound. You just had to push one button in, and the rest would pop out like jealous siblings. You could set your favorite radio stations and find them with a simple press. The familiar crackling sound, then the music would start playing, and no one called it analog. Vacuum tubes behind the TV. Behind the old TV, small vacuum tubes emitted a faint orange glow, gently humming as if the machine was breathing. If the picture on the screen flickered, you just needed to tap it. If the TV completely went out, someone would take an old tube in a paper bag to the hardware store to buy a replacement. Fixing things yourself wasn't an option, it was simply what you did. Do you have any unique stories about an invention or item from the 50s that few people know about? Share below to let us know. Hair rollers before bed. Women would wrap them tightly before bed, both for beauty and secretly hoping not to crush their heads in their dreams. Some rollers were made of foam, some plastic, and some required pins to secure. The next morning, you'd unroll them like opening a gift, praying the curls would hold until lunchtime. School milk in small cartons. School milk came in small paper cartons, often a real struggle to open neatly. They always tore or splattered or simply refused to open. The milk was transported in large metal crates, faintly smelling of metal, and no matter how cold it was initially, it warmed up by snack time. Grandma's non-electric sewing machine. Grandma's sewing machine didn't need electricity. It ran entirely on foot power. You'd sit and watch her operate the pedal like a professional drummer, gently guiding the fabric with steady hands. The machine made a steady click-whir sound, creating perfectly straight stitches better than any digital machine today. And strangely, that sewing machine always faintly smelled of dust and lemon polish. Cigarette vending machines in diners. Coke, back then often came in heavy glass bottles, cold from the freezer, offering a distinctive, unforgettable taste. And in some diners, you'd see glowing cigarette vending machines in the corner. Metal levers, small windows displaying cigarette packs, and a satisfying thunk as a pack dropped out. No one asked your age. It was a different world. Not better or worse, just different. Mechanical typewriters. Typing class back then was a chaotic orchestra of heavy keys, loud clicks, and fingers stained with ribbon ink. You just had to make one mistake, and you'd have to start the whole thing over. If you forgot to hit the carriage return at the end of each line, the whole paragraph would be misaligned and look very strange. It was a challenging and patient learning process where you had to face small mistakes and learn to overcome them. Itchy wool blanket in the car trunk. In the trunk of most 50s family cars, you would always find an old, sometimes itchy wool blanket that was almost never used for its main purpose. It was always there, just in case for an unplanned roadside picnic or an emergency snowstorm. You never actively chose to use it. It was like a last resort towel at Grandma's house. But it was very loyal, always ready to serve when you needed it most. A simple but meaningful item. Itchy church clothes. On Sunday mornings, wearing church clothes was an unavoidable ritual. The clothes were itchy, the shoes stiff, and the collar never lay flat in place. However, it was part of the service where you had to squirm in hard pews, secretly count the church ceiling tiles, and try not to giggle during prayer. Sometimes the sermon lasted forever, but sometimes Grandma gave you a peppermint. Stovetop popcorn. Popcorn back then didn't come from a convenient pre-packaged bag. You had to pour corn kernels into a large metal pot, add oil, and then shake continuously as if your life depended on it. It was a real arm workout requiring strength and perseverance. The fragrant smell of popcorn would fill the whole house before the first kernel popped. And when the pot overflowed with popcorn, you knew you had done it right, creating a perfect, hot, and delicious snack. TV dinners. TV dinners weren't fancy, but they felt like a treat. You'd peel back the foil from the small metal tray, then patiently wait forever while the kitchen filled with the unmistakable smell of overcooked peas, Salisbury steak, mashed potatoes, and a brownie that never cooked evenly. It was a small metal tray, symbolizing modernity and convenience, a quick solution for busy dinners. Metal Christmas tinsel. Christmas tinsel back then wasn't plastic like today. It was thin, shimmering metal strands. You didn't just throw them on carelessly. Instead, you meticulously placed each strand onto the tree. The twinkling Christmas lights behind the metal tinsel made the whole tree sparkle like a postcard. Tinsel stuck to everything, but no one minded, because it created a classic and lavish beauty, bringing a warm and nostalgic Christmas atmosphere. Drive-in movie theaters. Drive-in movie theaters were a miracle on asphalt, romantic and comfortable, a characteristic entertainment culture of the 50s. You'd drive in, hang the metal speaker on the window, and secretly hope it worked. Families in station wagons, couples in convertibles, all staring at the glowing screen under the starry sky. If you spilled popcorn, no one minded, because your car was probably already quite messy. Cloth diaper boxes with washing instructions. Cloth diaper boxes back then had instructions right on the side. Boil and bleach. No convenient disposable diapers, just stacks of white fabric folded into perfect squares and fastened with safety pins. The bucket in the bathroom wasn't for decoration, it had a specific purpose. And on laundry day, the whole house would be filled with the smell of laundry detergent, rubber diaper covers, and a mother's steadfast love for her child. Metal toy trucks. Metal toy trucks were almost weapons. Sturdy, sharp-edged, and always missing a wheel. They survived sandpits, staircases, and even being buried in the backyard. If you got one for Christmas, you knew it was built to last, and if your little brother threw it, it would leave a dent on the wall and floor. Job advertisements. Job advertisements in the 50s had two clear categories: help wanted male and help wanted female. No one questioned it, that's simply how things were. Secretaries here, mechanics there. The world seemed clearly divided, and if you wanted to cross that line, good luck, because it was a big challenge. Returnable soda bottles. Soda bottles back then weren't just drinks. They were money in disguise. You'd bring them back to the store, the bottles clinking in a cardboard box, and get small nickels in return. Then you'd turn around and spend that money on candy. You could easily spot a returnable bottle from across the street. It had a special shimmer of opportunity. Cartoons before the main feature at the cinema. Before the main movie started at the cinema, you'd get to enjoy a short cartoon. Maybe Bugs Bunny, Popeye, or Tom and Jerry. It was a little bit of fun before the lights dimmed and the main story began. You'd laugh, slurp your drink, and then the main movie officially started. It was a complete night out with popcorn, candy, and 2 hours of magic on the big screen. A full entertainment experience. New plastic lunchboxes with a characteristic smell. New plastic lunchboxes had a very distinct smell. Sweet, sharp, slightly chemical. You'd peel off the lid to reveal a bologna sandwich wrapped in wax paper, and maybe a Twinkie if you were lucky enough. That first whiff of vinyl meant lunch was truly ready. No one could forget the scent associated with childhood, with school lunches and simple yet memorable meals. NASA ads for Tang. Tang, the slightly sour orange powder drink, became an absolute icon, not because its taste was special, but because astronauts drank it. NASA's advertisements had a powerful effect, and suddenly every child wanted to sip what space heroes were drinking. Even if mom sometimes mixed it too strong, Tang's artificial orange flavor was linked to dreams of space, exploration, and a promising future. Rotary phones. Rotary phones weren't designed for speed, they demanded patience. If your friend's phone number had too many nines, it could take you all afternoon to dial. And if your finger slipped midway, you'd have to start all over again. Yet, the sound it made, the clicky return spin, somehow felt more satisfying than any smartphone beep today. Bench seats in cars. Bench seats in cars back then were simply long bench seats. No seat belts, no cup holders. You'd be thrown around corners and piled onto your siblings. The only restraint was your mother's arm flying out in front of you at every stop sign, an instinctive protective reflex. It was part of the family car experience, a lovable chaos where laughter and shouts blended to create unforgettable memories. Plastic sofa covers. Plastic sofa covers were a true summer curse. They were designed to protect furniture, but they trapped every ounce of heat, making you feel hot and uncomfortable. You'd sit down in shorts and immediately regret the sticky feeling, your back drenched in sweat. Yet, you weren't allowed to remove them, at least not until guests left, and sometimes not even then. Yellow pages. The yellow pages weighed a ton, as thick as a large dictionary because it contained a treasure trove of information. It was often tucked under the phone or used to prop up children at dinner. Need a plumber? Flip to the P's. Lost dog? Check the classifieds. It was a phone book, an extra seat, and a doorstop, an indispensable multi-purpose item in every household. Film in black canisters. Film came in small black canisters that you had to carefully load into the camera yourself. You opened the camera's back, pulled out the film, wound it tightly and correctly. Once the film was loaded, each press of the shutter button felt like a small commitment. No previews, no second chances. Just hope and a trip to the photo lab. Canned spaghetti. Canned spaghetti was a lifesaver for busy weeknights. You didn't have to wonder much, just heat it in a pot, pour it into a chipped bowl, and it was ready to eat. This dish had a distinctive orange color, was a bit mushy, and was labeled Italian style. At least the brand said so, and you didn't know any better. It was dinner, it was cheap, and somehow it still satisfied hungry bellies. These memorabilia and trends created a colorful, bold, and incredibly memorable 70s decade. Don't let these wonderful memories fade away. If you have precious, fading family videos and photos, preserve them. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button to Back to Yesterday to continue this journey of nostalgia with us.